Welcome, everybody, to Crystal Kyle and Friends. Today, we're going to be talking to Dr. Jill Stein, who, of course, is running for president as the Green Party candidate. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yep.
There's so much stuff to talk to her about. She was just arrested recently at a pro-Palestine protest, which is kind of wild because she's 73 years old.
This video is insane. You probably saw it. She also, one of her campaign officials was like thrown on the ground. He had cops like assaulting her with a bicycle, and then she got charged with assault.
That's incredible.
Like, it's insane. So I'm looking forward to getting an update from her on that campus protest. We'll ask her about Biden's recent comments, how the campaign's going. There's a lot to talk to Dr. Stein about.
Yeah, get into policy stuff I think is really interesting. And even broader questions about, Green Party strategy, what happened with Cornel West. There's just a lot to get to. So everybody, definitely, if you haven't yet subscribed on Substack, you're going to want to do that. But before we get to that, there's a lot of stuff to talk about. So there's a clip that's floating around. I guess Vivek Ramaswamy has a podcast.
Of course.
And he brought Ann Coulter on.
Yeah.
And she made a comment that has gone mega viral because she decided to, I would say it's probably the purest form of racism I've ever seen. I don't want to poison the well here. I want you to see the clip.
Just unabashed. And she led with it. Like, she wasn't asked about it. She just was like, let me go ahead and just tell you what a racist I am so we can start the conversation from, from that place of Nazi-level racism.
But I do wonder, if you call her racist to her face, I do wonder if she'd be like, no, how dare you? It would be interesting anyway.
Yes,
so,
I think she would.
Here, take a look at the clip, and then we'll talk about it.
And that's why I brought on today somebody who I think has some thoughtful perspectives on the future direction of our country, of our conservative movement, and on this question of nationalism and national identity, somebody who I've been fascinated by for a long time and have interacted with on social media, but for the first time we're having at least live form conversation in the offline sense of it. It's Ann Coulter. So Ann, thanks for coming on, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Me too. Thanks for having me. That was a fantastic opening monologue. I, too, am a fan of yours. I'm going to make a point of disagreeing with you so that it will be fun. You are so bright and articulate, and I guess I can call you articulate since you're not an American Black. Can't say that about them. That's derogatory. And that was a great opening segment. Lots of things to talk about there. Oh, and I agreed with many, many things you said during, in fact, probably more than most other candidates when you were running for president. But I still would not have voted for you because you're an Indian. We'll get back to that.
It's so funny because I feel like the right has for so long made a point of trying to convince people that's not how we think. We don't think like that.
Right.
It's about the ideas. It's about the policies. If you're conservative, then, we accept you. And to be fair, Fox News does a lot of tokenization. Trump himself does a lot of tokenization. Hey, a black guy who loves me. Hey, a gay guy who loves me. He even did in 2016 or 2020, I forget which one, he did a socialist for Trump thing. So it's like, as long as you love Trump, I don't care about any of that stuff. That's sort of his perspective. But this is like, she's like, cut the bullshit. I only like white people.
Yeah. Well, there was reportedly some of this that Vivek faced and his wife faced directly on the campaign trail. So I don't think he's probably surprised to learn that this perspective exists.
Well, can I tell you what he said?
In some form.
Oh, wait,
well,
I don't have the tweet. Okay, yeah, you read it. Go ahead.
So he tweeted this clip out and said, Ann Coulter told me flat out to my face that she couldn't vote for me, quote, because you're an Indian, even though she agreed with me more than most other candidates. I disagree with her, but respect she had the guts to speak her mind. It was a riveting hour. The Truth podcast is back.
That's like legendary levels of cuckness.
I mean, the level of disrespect here. And listen, I have no problem with you, like, quote unquote, platforming Ann Coulter. Fine.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
But you're going to sit there and not only take that of her saying, no, you can never be president just because of your ethnicity. And you don't and then you just go on to have a respectful disagreement and debate of ideas. And then you tweet it out and you're like, we disagree, but I respect her. There's nothing to respect about that perspective. And it's so humiliating that that's the way that you tweet it out. But I mean, yeah, he's very invested in, like you said, Kyle, pretending like this isn't a real thing in the Republican Party or pretending like it's acceptable to have this view. And in order to further his career and find some sort of acceptability among them, I guess he feels like he just, the smart strategy is just to take that. And here's the thing is, Ann Coulter, the reason she has been relevant for as many years, to the extent that she still is relevant, which she's broken with Trump, which has made her less relevant, but she was always the right-wing person who was like willing to say the thing that many people wanted to say but wouldn't say. And she wrote this book, Adios America, that, I mean, it's similar ideology to this of basically like, you know, you can't let these brown immigrants in because they're changing the culture of America, et cetera, which ends up being influential with Trump and sort of presages the Trump rise and the extreme xenophobic anti-immigrant rhetoric. But you know, if you listen to the rhetoric about immigrants and, you know, the threat they pose and they're invading the country and they're changing the nature of the country, great replacement theory, et cetera, it's really not that, it's not actually different from this just like blatant admission of racism from Ann Coulter.
Somebody on Twitter called her the Michael Jordan of racism. And I thought that's pretty apt. So,
well, you know, you asked that question. Okay, if she was someone who was like, you're a racist, what would she say? And the reason I said I don't think she would acknowledge that is because
the first thing she said in that clip.
What do you mean?
The first, she was like, I can't call an American black articulate, but I can call you articulate. The implication is like, you won't call me racist for calling you articulate, but a black person would. But then she goes on to admit, I'm a racist.
Right. Well, so someone tweeted out, I think, different clip that said they debated whether the president should be white. Ann's position essentially is that ethnicity is a backstop to ensure the president holds traditional American values. Vivek responds that Ann is reasoning by proxy, similar to DEI. So anyway, Ann quote tweeted this and says, liar, I never said ethnicity or white. I said generations in America in order to instinctively accept the freedoms we have that exist in no other country in the world. For example, polls show a shockingly large percentage of immigrants just can't get freedom of speech and the right to bear arms.
Okay, well, first of all, we don't actually have freedom of speech. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Second of all, the idea that a slate of policies or beliefs is inherent to your skin color. I am more white than Vivek Ramaswamy. I am way to the left of Vivek Ramaswamy. And according to her own logic, she's more likely to vote for me than somebody like Vivek. Yeah. Which just doesn't make sense.
Right.
Look, her point is, basically, you can't have good ideas if your skin color is not white. But then she goes on to say, no, Vivek, you can and do have good ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So then we're left with, it's like a logical deduction. We're left with it's just your fucking skin color. I just don't like you and can't accept you because of your fucking skin color.
This is a white country. It's built on white values. I mean, it really is like, I mean, this is Nazi ideology. There's really no other way to spin that. I don't use that lightly, but I don't think there's any other way you could interpret this. She also apparently in this goes on this whole like anti-Catholic screed about how they can't be trusted.
My mom is very offended.
So I don't know that she would be okay with you, even though you personally aren't, you know, don't self-identify as Catholic. You were raised that way. How do we know that you're not still loyal to the Pope in Vatican City? We don't know. It could be. I mean, who could say, really?
How can anybody think that something like religion is genetic? How can anybody be dumb enough to think that?
Yeah.
That's obviously not true.
Well, I like the idea that even you are not white enough for Ann Coulter to accept.
With the hair, I look like a fucking Aryan, right? Jesus Christ. Hitler's whacking off somewhere looking at my hair. What are we talking about here? If I'm not white enough, who the fuck is white enough?
But, I mean, listen, it's one thing to, like, make fun of her. But, again, I think that there is a decent, I don't think it's a majority, but I think this is the logical conclusion of a lot of the things that Republican politicians kind of allude to and give a wink and a nod to. But she just comes out and actually says it. And yeah, when you take the mask off and the like a little bit of, you know, let's put a little bit of, make it more of a dog whistle than just a bullhorn. When you take that off, I think people just see like, oh, that's wildly unacceptable, racist, and goes for her whole thing about American values. Like, this is so directly against the best ideal of what we would like to think is true of America.
Did you read the replies on Vivek's tweet when he sent that out?
Yeah,
sent this
I
video
did.
out?
It was a mixed bag.
I went through too. Yeah, it was a mixed bag. Some people, I love the people who are, this is like the lowest IQ response I've ever seen. This is why I love free speech. This is beautiful. You guys are disagreeing, and that's great. It's because you're disagreeing harmoniously. Free speech. Free speech. It's like, those are the same fucking idiots who wouldn't say shit about protesters getting their skulls cracked because they're pro-Palestine, right? But like, what a vapid, vacuous, idiotic response from those people.
Yeah.
But you're right. It was a mixed bag. There were some people who were defending Vivek harder than Vivek was defending himself. And then there were other people that were like, hey, dog, It is what it is. Look,
I saw some dude who was like, I'm Mexican and she's right. White people built this country and I really appreciate that. I was like, wow, if this person is real, that is so sad.
The idea that you can't have people with different skin tones to accept certain values and reject other values, you could build a society around, it's like immeasurable the number of different value sets and policies you can implement as a country. And obviously in no way, shape, or form is that tied to
your race, ethnicity.
At all.
No. And it's you see, honestly, you see a similar worldview in these arguments about like why Palestinians deserve to be murdered en masse because they're just like culturally inferior to
the Sam Harris
the
dude.
Israelis. Yeah. I mean, you hear, so.
They tie it to religion.
They tie it to, well, I think they tie it to religion and I think there's a racial element too.
They don't say that part, but
yeah, it's like Arab culture and Muslim culture specifically is bad and they're savage and they're barbarians. Ergo, we don't really care and Israel can just murder them, you know, at will and it's fine because they have a superior culture. So that's like the you know, slightly masked version of basically Ann Coulter's ideology here.
And to your point earlier, she's always offered this more pure, distilled form of right-wing ideology, whatever the era was, but that has changed from era to era. So I remember back during the George W. Bush days, nobody was a more ardent defender of the war in Iraq and the war in Afghanistan.
Yeah,
I remember she famously made an argument about maybe we should nuke one of their major cities and we should forcibly make them become Christians. That's what she said. And by the way, hilarious, here she is talking about only white people understand freedom of speech. And then it wasn't that long ago. She was like, make them Christians by force. Well, what happened to your freedom of speech? Apparently that's out the fucking window.
These white people who are running D.C. right now surely don't understand freedom of speech, judging by their response, the bipartisan response to campus protesters by a majority white body.
Well, let me ask you this, because Ann Coulter recently made a comment against Greg Abbott, basically saying Republicans abandon freedom of speech the second that it's something they don't like being said. And I talked about that. I did a segment on that. And my question to my audience was, is she doing this because she's actually taking a principled stand in favor of freedom of speech? Or is she doing this because it's the far-right Nick Fuentes type thing of I fucking hate the Jews? So I'm just going to say, you know, don't censor these people because they're going after the Jews and fuck the Jews. You know what I'm saying?
I don't have a fine grasp of Ann Coulter's, like, her personal racial hierarchies outside of, like, you know, thinking that white people have to be the ones to run the country and run for office, et cetera. So I'm not sure. It also could be just self-interested because obviously she's, you know, very much in danger of personally getting canceled to the extent that she can be or, you know, censored, et cetera, et cetera. So she may be smart enough to realize that these incredible regimes of censorship that were architected after the war on terror and being expanded now would definitely apply to her. So
I don't think it's that. I don't think she has the foresight to think about that.
She's not a stupid person. She's not a stupid person. Her ideology is disgusting, but I don't think she's dumb.
I don't know about that.
No, I don't think she's a stupid person. I mean, like I said, to remain as relevant as she has for this many years, et cetera, like you can have an abhorrent ideology and also have, you know, some level of intellectual facilities. So I don't know. What do you think? You think it's just the anti-Semitism?
I don't know. That's why I asked the question. I asked the question to my audience because I don't know. I feel like there's a split in the right. And you have like the super far right people who are more like Nick Fuentes aligned, who are sort of like, fuck the Jews. There's like an evil cabal of Jews that controls everything. And so fuck them. And if that means I like disingenuously latch on to the pro-Palestinian cause to further that argument, fine. But then you have like the Richard Hanania cucks who are like sucking Netanyahu's dick on a daily basis.
There's like the racists who it just all depends on where they rank Jews in like their racial hierarchy. So are they the ones who are like, you know, the Jewish supremacists are like, well, look at their, like I was saying,
they
like,
have
look
a high
at their
IQ.
culture, high tech culture, high IQ, blah blah blah. Are you that type of racist, or are you the type that's like, no, they're evil and they're bad and they hate Christians and they're running the world and I don't know. I don't know which. I don't know.
Right-wing ideology is such a mess.
I don't know what camp and culture falls into. So I might have to be agnostic on the question. I have to look more into it. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Is she friends with Fuentes?
I don't think so. She's ancient. You know, she's not really that plugged in. I don't think she's friends. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think she's friends with Fuentes. But look, the thing is, this will be the final point on this, but she she's been a shapeshifter. She pretends like she's this super principled person. She was the biggest neocon on the planet, and then in the Trump era, she was like, fuck the neocons.
America
I hate
first.
the neocons.
Yeah.
America first. All of a sudden, she's a paleoconservative. And it's just, spare me on that shit. But look, in a weird roundabout way, I'll end on this. I actually kind of agree with Vivek that he's like, hey, thanks for being honest about this shit.
It's better than when they couch it and like, no, of course it's not about that. It's about whatever, you know?
But for him to pretend like it's something worthy of respect, like a position worthy of respect, no, let's call a spade a spade. Sometimes a position is not fucking worthy of respect. If you're supporting the genocide of the Palestinian people, that's not a position that's worthy of respect. I have disdain for you.
Yeah.
This isn't a gray area question. This is a deeply, deeply black and white question, and this is one of those things too. So for him to sort of cuck himself on that level is pathetic, but the honesty is something you'll never get anywhere else on this particular question. So on that front, I'm like, hey, Michael Jordan racism, let it hang out.
That is how I feel about like the right-wing like Israeli settlers who are like, no, we want to do the ethnic cleansing. Like, here's our chart of how we're going to resettle Gaza.
But this is the U.S. response.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
Right. And it's like, you know what? It's actually easier to deal with when they're just like, no, we're genocidal. No, you're misunderstanding us. Actually, we don't just want Judea and Samaria and the Gaza Strip. Here's the other countries that we also want to take over. It's like, okay, you know what? If you're honest about your intentions, we can deal with that. The gaslighting makes you feel insane.
Right.
You know, like the liberal Zionists of, Israel, they're moral. They don't want to kill Palestinians. They're just trying to go after Hamas. And you're like, you're fucking crazy. Like, you don't believe that. You don't believe that. So it is easier to deal with the person who just like blatantly and brazenly holds the completely abhorrent views. Because then you're like, all right, at least we know what we're working with here and no one can deny it.
Yeah. By the way, Ann Coulter ducked a debate with me.
For real?
Yeah. It was supposed to be a
What was that story?
Politicon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was supposed to be a Politicon, and we had an agreement, and then she backed out. And I think the argument that she gave publicly was like, how many number one bestsellers has he written? It's like, I've never written a book, you fucking jackass. That's not what I do.
Elitist.
Yeah, and I got like, I had 1 million more followers than she fucking did. She was out in obscurity, and this was when I had maybe 700,000 YouTube subscribers. So anyway, I think my fans went after her pretty aggressively, which is cool.
Speaking of intellectual consistency, apparently she dated Dinesh D'Souza. So
You're kidding me.
Apparently, that's the word.
You're kidding me.
So apparently she didn't have that much of an issue with Indians, but I guess she just wouldn't vote for him for
Oh my
president.
God, that's like the super racist white guys who date black women all the time, you know?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of those that are like, act like white people are superior, and then they're always dating black women.
Yeah, I guess someone in the comments was like, maybe her breakup with Dinesh led her to be an indophobe. Maybe that's what happened.
Indophobe, that's funny. That's funny.